This is my grandson, Judah. As you can see, he's awesome. He drinks a lot of milk, and he's a good eater. The time's gonna come where if he's still drinking milk, he might become a disappointment to mom and dad, although I think Don and I will still be crazy about him. He is chiding the Hebrew believers for not moving forward in their faith. He says they're stuck on the basics. They haven't moved on. They're still drinking milk. Well, the basic stuff, like turning away from really stupid sin that's tearing up your life, that's killing you, and entering into basic faith, basic trust in God. Cleansing rites, or probably we think of as baptism, a public declaration of faith, and the laying on of hands, moving into ministry. Now stop there for a second. Most of us think that if you're doing ministry stuff, if you've had hands laid on you for that you're actually quite advanced. The resurrection of the dead, maybe talking here about just an understanding of what happens after we die, and then finally, things about judgment. He wants them to move on to the next things, to mature in their faith, to eat solid foods, to not just receive, but eventually learn to give as well. How does he define these things? Well, our best guess is what he gives in the rest of chapter 6 and the remainder of the book. The deeper things of salvation involved in helping the poor, the eternal priesthood of Jesus, his presence with God in heaven, and how that affects us now. The role that the law, or moving into a new law, plays in transforming us internally. He then gets talking about the blood of Christ and what the power of the blood has to do with our powerful walks with Jesus. He also talks about holiness and how an understanding of the law leads to permanent transformation. And then perhaps the most beautiful part of Hebrews, he talks about the depths of faith. Not just beginning to believe, but believing when there's nothing to see. Suffering as discipline, as a means of growth, as a means of entering into this place, this holy mountain. And finally, fittingly, the deeper things of God, the solid food, ends with understanding and living in the presence of Jesus himself. These are the deeper things. These are the things that you and I must move towards if we're to progress in our faith, if we're not to become cursed, if we're not to be cast aside. These are the things we'll talk about next week as we go through the second half of the book of Hebrews.